Yes, thank you very much, Sean. And once again, a very big welcome to all of our attendees this morning. We want to say thank you very much for taking the time out to listen to these Toolbox talks, as well as the interaction that we have had from the plumbers, from the safety side, and from every single person that actually has an opinion. We want to say thank you very much. We are not looking at it as bad information. It is constructive criticism, as well as the wonderful suggestions on some of the new topics that you want to hear. So we want to say once again a very big thank you to you. Just as a reminder for the upcoming month, April 2020, please register. If you've already registered for these Toolbox talks, you do not have to re-register, but make sure that you are here for the Legionnaire's disease or Legionella Awareness Month. We know that currently we are talking about coronavirus or COVID-19, and this seems to be overshadowing a lot of other information or a lot of other topics at the moment. And it's obviously within reason because it is affecting us directly in our homes, in our schools, even at our job sites. So we understand the need to look at this topic of COVID-19. However, Legionnaire's disease is also a topic that we need to discuss. So please be here for the entire month, the whole awareness month for Legionella, taking a look at what is it, how does it spread, how can it be prevented, and finally showing that it is preventable, but we just need to do a few things. Again, there's our numbers, myself on 071-875-2070, as well as our WhatsApp number, and then the email addresses that you can contact us on, safety@iopsa.org or info@ohss.co.za. So let's get straight into this morning's Toolbox talk on COVID-19 and you as a plumber. Now, what are coronaviruses? What is the difference between a coronavirus and a COVID-19 that we are currently facing? Well, basically a coronavirus, and obviously the media is full of information, so you probably know this already. But basically, coronaviruses are a large family of viruses that cause illness ranging from the common cold to some more severe diseases such as MERS or SARS. You've heard about that before. And these basically mean that they are transmitted between animals and people. Now, COVID-19, or the novel coronavirus, is a new strain of this coronavirus, but it has not been previously identified like MERS and SARS. So the 2019 COVID-19, as it is called at the moment, is a coronavirus that is identified as the cause of an outbreak of a respiratory illness, which was first detected in Wuhan, China. Now, how do we contaminate others? How are we getting contaminated? And what is the spread of this type of coronavirus currently? Well, as we know, it is through the air by coughing and sneezing, close personal contact, such as touching or shaking hands. Sometimes even on a surface where somebody has sneezed or coughed, that virus is sitting on that surface or on that object, and then when you touch it and you touch your mouth or nose or eyes before washing your hands, then you can also contract this illness. So we need to be very careful, and that is obviously why the South African government has put a mandate in to ensure that we are not gathering in large groups. Schools are closing down, and we are being told to be as careful as possible. But what really are the symptoms? What should you look out for if you are infected with the COVID-19? Well, since there is very limited information regarding the clinical features as well as the severity of the disease at this stage, we've basically only found that we can confirm that people with COVID-19 infections are reporting illnesses that range from very severe symptoms to almost death. So we see that high range, especially in older ones, being very severely affected. But most persons who are infected with COVID-19 experience mild symptoms and will recover. So symptoms include things like having a fever, having a cough, as well as shortness of breath. Now, because it is a respiratory disease or respiratory problem, most of the time it's going to affect your chest and your throat. So if you are having problems breathing, if you have a mild cough, these are things that you need to look out for. They're very similar to flu-like symptoms. So if you feel it's not that serious, you only have the flu, well, don't take a chance. Rather go and get yourself seen to. The reason is most symptoms may only appear after as long as 14 days after exposure to this virus. Now, someone who has the COVID-19 will normally cough or exhales, and they release droplets of infected fluid. Most of these droplets will then fall on nearby surfaces and objects such as desks, tables, telephones, and people could catch the COVID-19 by touching these contaminated surfaces or objects, especially after touching their eyes, nose, and mouth. If you're also standing within 1 meter of a person, they could catch it by breathing in droplets, coughed out or exhaled by a person who is infected. In other words, COVID-19 spreads and has the similar symptoms as the flu. So most persons will experience mild symptoms. However, some go on to experience a lot more severe illness. So please, we want you just to note that people over the age of 40 seem to be more vulnerable than those under the age of 40. However, this does not mean that some are immune. Everyone has the possibility to catch this virus. So please be careful regardless of the age you are. People with weak immune systems, regardless of your age, or people with conditions such as diabetes, heart or lung disease, are also more vulnerable to the serious symptoms or serious illness of the COVID-19. Now, as we mentioned, this virus, COVID-19 or coronavirus, is all over the news. So you are hearing this on a day-to-day basis. We are not giving you any new information. But what about applying this information to you as a plumber? Well, this is where we want to spend most of the time this morning discussing you, the plumber, and the COVID-19. How are you working together with this virus, ensuring that you avoid exposure to yourself and those who work with you and those who work around you? Well, the reason why we want to discuss this is, first of all, as a plumber, you work in sewers and with waste pipes. And this is sometimes an everyday occurrence for you as a plumber. And these areas can be particularly dangerous to your health because of other exposures. Aside from COVID-19, you are being exposed to hazardous chemical substances or hazardous biological agents. And these exposure levels, and depending on where you are, how often you are working in there, could be even more severe or more dangerous than COVID-19. However, if you are taking precautions against hazardous chemical substances as well as hazardous biological agents, incorporate these additional avoiding measures so that you can prevent the exposure to COVID-19 as well. Well, first of all, we have to say, if you are unsure about the atmosphere or the area that you're going to work in, and if it has an exposure to either a hazardous chemical substance, a hazardous biological agent, or even the corona COVID-19 virus, you need to ensure that you have all the facts. So a good site survey, asking questions of the people who are in and around that area. Maybe do some research on where the coronavirus is spreading or more likely to be spread. Take the precautions early. Even if you are not currently infected, make sure you get checked and make sure you are following a good hygiene routine. This will prevent or perhaps postpone the exposure to a degree, depending on how effective your measures are. But what we want to essentially do is check and monitor that that area is not containing a hazardous chemical substance, a hazardous biological agent, or the coronavirus. Again, if you are unsure, why not take those precautions in any case? So follow these precautions as we show you now, and there's a few tips that we can go through. Number one, try and eliminate the risk altogether. This is not always possible, but what we can do is perhaps move the working environment to a separate area. If this is not possible, can you find a substitute? perhaps working with a different method, perhaps working with better PPE. So again, we say, if you are not sure that this has a hazardous chemical substance or a hazardous biological agent, or even the COVID-19 virus, why not protect yourself against it in any case? So put these safeguards in. There should be technical solutions in place to protect the worker, such as mechanical ventilation, mechanical guards, remote controls, things that you rely on in a mechanical or a technical solution in order not to rely on human interference if possible. Then warn and educate. Implement worker training, install suitable alarms as well as warning systems. Now, why would this be a practical way of going about working in this environment? Well, for one, when we safeguard ourselves against a potential hazard, we are not only eliminating the effects of that hazard, but we are essentially eliminating the possibility for re-exposure or recontamination or even the spread of these types of substances, agents, or viruses. Now, warning and educating does not mean being paranoid. It just means having a safety mindset. Train your staff on how to identify hazards. Train them on installing suitable alarm and warning systems. This could be by just having a whistle and stating that in an event of an environment where there is an exposure to certain hazardous chemicals, hazardous biological agents, or even a COVID-19 virus, a warning or clear warning can be given to those around them. Now, while you might say to yourself, well, how are we going to even know if this is happening at any given time? Well, how would you know if the environment that you are working in has the potential to have a chemical substance, a biological agent, or the COVID-19 virus? It's by doing research. It's by taking the time and preparing and planning where you are going to be doing the work. This does not need to take a lengthy amount of time. Most of the time, it's about asking the right questions to the right people. So if you need help with this or understanding what it is or what it means to work in these types of conditions, please ensure that you are taking the correct precautions and finding solutions, perhaps even speaking to a competent person outside of your organization to find out what you can do or what environment you are currently working in. So again, the whole reason for this is to avoid the exposure to this coronavirus. So here are 4 things that you can do to ensure that you are trying to avoid the exposure to a reasonable degree. From the WHO or the WHO, the World Health Organization, almost every single time they mention a certain aspect of COVID-19 and how someone can be infected and how someone can avoid it, they say, wash your hands. Now, this is an extremely important part of avoiding exposure to almost all illnesses, diseases, and viruses. If you follow the guidance and techniques set out for correct hand cleaning methods, also, you can carry around some hand sanitizer in your toolbox if you cannot get to an area where soap or hand soap is available. This will kill and destroy the germs and viruses that are living on your hands. It also prevents contact with the virus where you have touched, and there is a possibility for you to touch your face, your nose, your eyes, or your mouth. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but have you noticed how often we actually touch our face in a day? Oftentimes, we are not even aware of the amount of times that we touch our face. So try and be aware of this, but at the same time, take a precaution before this might happen and wash your hands as regularly as possible, especially before and after using toilets, before and after eating, before going out, and after touching anything that may be contaminated. Now, it might say to yourself, well, this is a lot of hand cleaning. Well, yes, it is a lot of hand cleaning, but it is almost a state of emergency currently with the COVID-19. Get into a routine of washing your hands as regularly as possible. We also look at the tools and equipment that are going to be used in the sewer, in the waste pipes. These are also going to be touching contaminated materials. So keep your tools and equipment clean, especially after you've used them. And then do not use or share tools that you are not sure where they come from. In other words, if you find a piece of a piece of equipment or a specific tool that you need to use, why not wash it before you use it? Once it is used, why not wash and clean it and place it back? Now, the reason for this is to avoid cross-contamination. So where possible, please eliminate the use of tools that are unsafe for use, as well as potentially contaminated with something that you are working with. When cleaning and washing your PPE, now we are going to discuss PPE in the next slide, but when you clean or wash your PPE, remember your PPE was directly exposed to the area around you. And yes, it is a barrier between yourself and a potential exposure. It is also the last barrier. In other words, it's not the first port of call that we want to get to stop the exposure. We want to have an entire safety system in place to prevent you from being exposed first. PPE, although mandatory, is then the last call to stop the exposure accessing your body. So having proper goggles, adequate footwear, proper respirators like your N95 3M respirator that will stop particles from reaching your lungs, waterproof gloves that cover not just the wrist but go over your overalls, and then a proper overall that will prevent splashback of hazardous chemicals, hazardous biological agents, as well as exposure to the COVID-19 virus. These are the types of elements or PPE that you would use generally. Now, why do we say that? Well, what we are trying to say to you is even before the COVID-19 virus came about, this type of PPE is generally mandatory when working in a sewer or on a waste pipeline where you would be exposed to hazardous chemical substances and hazardous biological agents. The COVID-19, yes, although a new virus to us at the moment, does not mean we are going above and beyond what we are currently doing. So this type of PPE should have already been in your toolbox while working in sewers and on wastewater pipelines because of the contact between yourself and a hazardous biological agent that is already present aside from COVID-19. But just to say again, if you are cleaning these types of PPE, make sure they are sanitized and keep them separate from your other clothing, especially if you are going to wash them at home. Remember, while washing this, you may cross-contaminate from the PPE to other surfaces or other clothing. So please be very careful when cleaning your equipment. The best guideline is to follow the manufacturer's guideline on cleaning your PPE. Then, as a last note, if you feel sick or if you know of someone in your team that is feeling sick, even if you feel it's just a common cold or just a flu that you're getting for a change of season, report it and get the needed medical attention required. Rather be safe instead of sorry. So yes, are you safe? If you are not, there's a big possibility that you might be sorry for not taking these specific guidelines. Now, there are loads of information that we can give you. We've sifted through quite a bit of them, and we have a few guidelines from the WHO, the World Health Organization, and there's a few PDFs that we can mail to you if you wish. So if you'd like to get in touch with us, we can send you some more information because obviously we cannot touch on all aspects of the COVID-19 virus at the moment. But go onto the Iopsa webpage. You will also notice that they have set up a separate webpage where you will find an update on the COVID-19 and how to deal with it currently. But just to touch again on the types of PPE that you as a plumber would want to use, specifically now looking at the COVID-19, but obviously when working with human waste or sewage, you want to ensure that you are protected all the time. Safety goggles, ones that cover over the entire eye, and protect the eye from splashes, from human waste or sewage, this is the type that is recommended that you have. If you use a 3M Goggle Gear 500, that is the type that we have showed you in the previous picture. They are very, very good. They are reusable and they are very strong. They've got Scotch Guard and anti-fog application, as well as the technique to cover the eyes clearly and safely, and it doesn't fog up, which is a really nice feature of this type of safety goggle. And this is some type of safety goggle that you would look for. So please look for this or something similar to this. We are not advocating 3M. We are just saying this is what you may want to use if you are in that environment, and it will also assist you in the prevention of contaction between yourself and COVID-19. When selecting safety shoes or safety boots, it is also best by understanding where you will be standing or walking through. So in a sewer, preferably look for rubber boots to prevent the exposure to human waste or sewage, as well as the exposure to this current virus. So look out for something that is very similar to the Stimula XP. If you want to take it down, it's the STIMELA XP type of boot. It was also the picture in the previous slide. Then we want to ensure we have a protective face mask or splash-proof face shield. Now, when we're looking at the face mask itself, we want to encourage you to please use an N95 respirator or surgical mask, and then look for a splash-proof face shield that can go over this. The reason for that is we want to stop the inhalation of particles, but we also want to stop the splashback of particles. When it comes to overalls, look for liquid repellent overalls, and you can look for a type called the Tyvek disposable or Tyvek reusable suit, depending on how often you're going to be working in this environment. On the glove side, you can use latex or nitrile gloves. Depends if you are allergic to latex, you can then use the nitrile gloves, but make sure they are waterproof and they also come past your wrist in order to cover over your overalls and prevent that splashback. So that is all that we can give you this morning. We do have a lot more information, so if you'd like this information, once again, reach out to us, safety@iopsa.org or info@ohss.co.za. Just as a special announcement, all courses are postponed until further notice. So the courses that we have designed for this year, for all of the plumbers out there in the industry, specifically the Iopsa members, due to the current coronavirus pandemic and the current restrictions imposed by our government, all courses have been postponed until further notice. Now, this is not a cancellation of courses, but only a postponement until a later time. So please, if you have already booked for a course, don't worry, your name is still down. We have not canceled this. We are just waiting until a better time, or perhaps until the epidemic or pandemic, as it is, has given us more light in order to understand what we can do in future. So we will email you a reminder regarding this, as well as update you on new dates as we get them and as we receive new information going forward. So we just want to say from all of us at OHSS as well as Iopsa, thank you for your cooperation, and we encourage you to keep healthy, keep hygienic, and keep a good routine of protecting yourself as well as your employees. So thank you very much for joining us this morning on the COVID-19, what to know as a plumber, what type of PPE you should be wearing. And please don't forget, even after COVID-19 is gone and it is part of our history, hazardous biological chemicals or hazardous biological agents are still going to be in the areas where many of us are working. So please take cognizance of it now, protect yourself from it now if you haven't before, but continue to protect yourself in the future, even when coronavirus is no longer here. So we look forward to seeing you next week, and we're going to hand it over back to you, Sean.
All right, perfect. Thanks so much, Chris. We have got a couple of questions here, which we'll try and get through quickly. The first one reads, the government has stopped breathalyzing. Now our employees do not want to breathalyze either. I work at a mine and have come to work under the influence. This is now going to cause incidents and accidents. If we stop breathalyzing, what can we do?
So this is a very good question, and thank you very much for that question. I'm not 100% sure on what we would be doing aside from breathalyzing test. Obviously, the reason for that is to prevent the spread of the coronavirus from breathing in and out of these breathalyzers. I don't see why we should cancel breathalyzing completely to prevent somebody who is exposed to a substance or is maybe abusing a substance at the workplace. So I would have to do some research and get back to you on that. Sorry that I do not have an answer for you right now, but I'd like to do some research first before actually answering that question. Thanks, Shawnee.
Right, perfect. The next question reads, or the next statement reads, we will clean out drain rods, tools, etc. in Jay's fluid. Okay, so I assume that's a disinfectant. The next question I've got for you reads, if you wear a disposable mask, what is the process of disposing of it, especially when you work in an office environment?
So this is a very good question, and I have had this question raised this past week. What we did was we went to our local chemist, which is the Dis-Chem just around the corner from us, and we actually asked them if they had the availability to discard of medical waste, and they did. The reason is they do have an on-site nurse that looks after blood tests and things like that when people come in, as well as sugar diabetes. And what we did was we just kept all the surgical masks from our clients in a bag. We then took it through to Dis-Chem, making sure that we did not contaminate ourselves, and we handed it over to them in order for them to discard. So what we did was we treated it as medical waste, and we just took it to a company such as Dis-Chem. I'm not saying all of them do that. We've just got an agreement with ourselves in our area. So perhaps you can do that. Reach out to your doctor. Perhaps they've got a medical waste facility themselves. They have to get rid of needles, etc. And you can maybe just add on to theirs. It's probably not going to be a whole bucky load, just maybe a bag or two every now and then. So perhaps try and use that. Otherwise, if you can let me know the area that you're in, and I can do some phoning to see which chemists around you could assist you.
Right, and then I've got another comment here which just reads, would you say that plumbing is high risk at this stage?
So that is a good question. I would not say that it is a high risk at this stage in generalizing plumbing. I would suggest that if you are working in a sewer or with waste pipelines, yes, that is generally high risk in any case, regardless of the coronavirus outbreak. But what we do suggest is if you are working with plumbing or on plumbing, you are going to be exposed to perhaps people, fecal matter that could have the exposure to the coronavirus. So at this stage, if you are working in an environment where that is a potential risk, then yes, that risk will then be categorized as high for the meantime. But aside from that, working in an environment with hazardous chemical substances or hazardous biological agents, aside from COVID-19, should still be regarded as a high risk category. Thanks, Sean.
All right, perfect. All right, Chris, well, that is all of the questions we have got this morning. I'm going to go ahead and end the session off. Is there anything you'd like to say just before I do?
Just thank you to everyone for their cooperation and patience with ourselves with the training. Thank you very much, Sean, for also being available for these. And to everyone out there, just keep safe during this time. Look after yourself as well as your family at home. So if there is any information that you have gleaned from this Toolbox Talk, why not share it with your family? Remember, if you train them, you could potentially stop the risk of exposure to your loved ones as well. Thanks very much, Sean, and we hope you all have a very safe week.
And perfect. Thanks so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to go ahead and end the session off now. Please do remember the survey on the way out. And guys, enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.